Hey,
Oh, hold on, Louise. We want you to introduce your broadcast now. In just a second. Okay. Now, Louise, you can introduce your broadcast.
good morning, everyone. Welcome to Time for Your Mental Health. This is Louise Carcione. I'm happy to welcome you. I'm happy to let you know that I have a guest as well as a co-host. Pastor Bruce Wall is the co-host, and the guest is Larry Noble. How wonderful to see Larry. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to be seen again.
Yes, yes. So we're going to be sharing some time this morning on the air to talk about something that's important to you. What is it that's important to you, Larry? That has anything to do with mental health?
I just wanted some information, some feedback on how do you not confront, but how do you present to an adult family member that is experiencing and showing signs of some sort of depression? How do you address that?
Well, you have to, do you know this person at all?
Oh, yes, very well.
Then are you prepared to speak with them about their depression, or do you want to find a person who is trained to work with that person?
I would say both, Sister Louise. I'm prepared to do both.
Okay, so you need to talk with this person to encourage them to allow you to speak with them. And then you also need to encourage them to know that you're going to try and find a counselor to speak with them as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that counselor should come from the Department of Mental Health. Do you know if that person has ever had anyone from the Department of Mental Health before?
I don't have any idea about that. No.
Oh, okay, because that's important, because if they have already had some conversation with someone from DMH, then that counselor might want to come back and talk to your friend. I assume it's your friend.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. That's good. It's very important. It's very important when you have a friend that you recognize as a person who needs some help from you and is not getting the amount of help that you think that they need. I have to, I'll be back 1 minute. Someone is ringing my doorbell.
You know, Larry, this happens every week now. Louise is now having visitors ring her doorbell during the time that she's supposed to be broadcasting. So we're going to have to deduct from her pay. She's got all these people that want her attention when she's broadcasting. But anyway,
she should have them on the air. She should have them on the broadcast.
The people that are coming by her house?
Visiting her.
Well, we don't know what they might say and then get us in trouble with the FCC. But I was speaking to somebody else this morning who was saying that they also needed a counselor. And a couple people are trying to help people I know find counselors, but the wait is like 2 and 3 months for them just to be able to sit down and have the initial meeting. So the need for counselors, licensed counselors in our city, period, across the country is astronomical. People are in need. And how does a person who needs a counselor wait for 1 month or 2 months or 3 months for the initial meeting, I would think that would put the person in jeopardy.
Hmm.
So does the
It
person
is,
talking
it can,
about need it
yeah.
immediately?
It
to
can
help
be, it can be a problem if a person has to wait a long time, but that's why it's important for Larry to find out if his friend had already been talking with a trained counselor somewhere in the department already. And if that was the case, he could get that person back again.
Right. No, it's actually a family member, like, no, they haven't had any contact with a professional counselor at all.
They have not, or they have?
They have not. No.
They have not. Okay, in
No.
that case, they need to make an appointment at the department to be
Mhm.
seen and interviewed by someone who can set up an appointment with a trained counselor.
Okay. Well, let me make it, can I make it more personable?
Yes.
What does a family do in the meantime while they wait? What do you recommend a family do around this person, a
Well,
particular member?
occasionally the family is able to talk with somebody in the department as well.
Mhm.
But what's more important is the person that requires a trained counselor for the depression that you mentioned. That person needs someone to speak with them first. And if it doesn't happen soon enough in the Department of Mental Health, perhaps they should go to the hospital that has a Department of Mental Health unit within it that they can be talked with there.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
thank
that
you.
I think that when you go to the hospital seeking that help, it becomes more intense, and
Mhm.
there's a stronger possibility that they could find a placement for the person. If you go into the hospital through the emergency ward, they take that very seriously.
Yes.
So the big question is the depression at a point where you think the person needs to be hospitalized, or is the depression at a point where they just don't want to get up, or they just don't want to do things? It's not as severe as needing hospitalization.
Is that a question for me, Pastor?
Yeah.
I don't think they're at that point right now. I believe just showing the signs of, some self-destruction, destruction of things around them, relationships around them. I'm not saying things, people that are close to them,
Mhm.
the lashing out. Yeah. So my other question is, should we just stay close in the meanwhile? This is just starting off. So we're just now acknowledging this, and as loved ones around this person, we're saying, okay, we want to help. How do we do this? So,
Well, are
um,
you thinking that if you do not spend some time with this person, that there's a possibility that this person might consider suicide?
I don't think that. I'm not sure of that. They do live by themselves, but I don't know that. We haven't really addressed it yet, but it's coming within the next week or so. We're going to
Okay.
address it as a family.
Yes, okay. Would you leave it on the chair, please?
All
Okay,
right.
okay.
Yeah. So in the meanwhile, while we prepare, and I'm gonna take your advice, we're gonna, as a unit, we're gonna get a hold of Department of Mental Health and see what resources are out there.
Yes, you
for this.
need to establish some kind of association with the Department of Mental Health that allows you to understand whether you can have the conversation or you need to bring your friend for the conversation appointment
Mhm.
at a time that has been established for that person.
So in the meanwhile, Sister Louise, you recommend conversation? I don't know, just being close to this person?
I recommend that you allow this person to know that you consider their lives important to you and that
Mhm.
you want to help them to get the kind of assistance that they really need. If you can, if they will allow you to spend some time to find that assistance for them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Louise, I have a question just regarding the going to a hospital and presenting this person there through the emergency ward or going to straight to the Department of Mental Health. The emergency piece at the hospital, again, becomes more serious because you're going in through an emergency.
Mhm.
If you go to the Department of Mental Health versus trying to find a counselor on your own, does that also, by going to the Department of Mental Health saying that my family member needs a counselor, is that the same level of intensity as going to the emergency ward at a hospital?
It's hard to establish whether that is what is appropriate at each of the hospitals. So it would really have to be determined by going to the emergency ward and the Department of Mental Health within the emergency unit to see if they can establish an appointment for you first before you go to a different hospital.
Does that say anything, Larry? I think
Absolutely.
it's more severe than the other as far as intake.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't believe we're at this, the extreme yet. And Lord willing, we'll never get there. So we're just
Yes,
trying
and
to get it.
I wouldn't stop having any conversation with the friend because they might, that would not be a good thing just to stop the conversation.
Right,
You have to try and continue your conversation with them until you can establish some kind of an appointment for yourself and for your friend in a place that actually is an appropriate place for this person to be seen by someone who's trained in psychology and in some kind of assistance for someone who has a depression.
right. You know, it's also interesting because well, the family members and I have been talking a lot about this. It's just not that person that's going through. It affects everybody. So everybody's going through something, maybe not to the
Right,
extreme as this particular
right,
member,
right.
but how do we relate to it? You know, do we don't have to be scared? We're finally at the point where we're going to address it. We're not going to just talk about it behind their backs. We're actually going to address it
Right.
for the benefit of the whole family, you know, and I find that
And
when you just doing that alone is a sense of relief, you know, because we're not hiding it and, you know, we're not being ashamed, but we're actually
right.
going to. So when helping one person, we actually end up helping someone else.
Yes, and
And
your friend needs to know that you believe that this situation is important
yes,
and that you need to do something for him. I assume it's a man.
no,
Oh, it's a
yes,
female. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
That you want to assume that making an appointment for this person is the appropriate thing to do. And so you want to be able to encourage the person to know that you will try to work on developing an appointment for them.
Okay.
Have you
Well, I-
mentioned, Larry, that you're seeking, that you're willing to assist them in finding a counselor, or are you doing it kind of independent? And if you find the counselor, then you'll speak to them?
No, we just feel like it's necessary to address it immediately before it gets any further and before they get any deeper. So, I mean, I don't believe in coincidences. There's a reason why I'm here. And then talking about mental health. So we were actually going to address it today.
Mhm.
And this now gives more information to bring back to the entire group, and so we can move forward with some sort of direction, as opposed to just saying, oh, you need some help, but don't know what you're going to do. So now at least we have a beginning. We have
Right,
a
right.
jump off,
Right, and it's critically important for the person to know that you consider what's going on in their lives important and that you want to help them.
Right, absolutely.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Louise, do you have anything? Oh, well, let me go back. Louise and I talked, Larry, a couple weeks ago, that when her doorbell rang, that it was a person that was delivering something to her.
Mhm.
And when we reach a certain age in life, we can actually, there's so many resources that are out there that people will come by and clean your house. People might deliver food. All kinds of things could happen. Right now at our church, Larry, remember at 12th Baptist when we had the vans that would pick up the senior citizens every Sunday
Yes.
morning and then
Yep.
drop them off? Even at 12th, Louise, they would have a meal for the members of the church and visitors.
Mhm.
If you're a senior, you eat for free, if I'm correct. And if you are a visitor, you eat for free, if I'm correct. The only ones who pay are the regular members. But there are so many different things that are available. We do not have, Larry, a van at this church. And that was intentional because of the cost for the insurance for commercial. We're considered commercial, not private. So the cost was exorbitant, plus the gas. So we have 3 seniors who want to come to church. And the way that they do it, you and I talked about this, Larry, the other week, is that they use the ride. And Louise is the recipient of that blessing of having the ride pick her up and then take her home. She's still getting used to the either lateness that they come too late, or there are times when they've come a couple hours earlier. When a person isn't ready, you set a time, but they're there 2 hours earlier. And our pick up to take people home is usually an hour or 2 hours past the time that they were supposed to be picked up. But the bottom line, although there are some glitches in using the ride, it is still getting those members to the church and taking them home. Louise, when the ride doesn't pick you up and you're waiting for them, what does that do for your day? How does that impact your whole day?
Well, it actually creates a frustration because I was disappointed when I was not able to get to my church on that particular day. That was the one day I wasn't able to go to our church.
Right. But fortunately, Larry, on that Sunday that happened to Louise, I knew what it was going to do to her. Again, mental health in your neighborhood. I knew how it was going to impact her. Louise, were you able to get on your computer and watch the service on the stream?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. I was able to watch everything. I was able to watch my brothers and sisters who do what they normally do when I'm sitting in the second pew there. I was able to see what they were doing. it wasn't as important to me to watch it on the computer as it is to actually physically be in the building. But I did watch the entire service that Sunday, yes.
And I guess it isn't until you are faced with a situation where you can't be in your church that you begin to appreciate the fact that we have a streaming service. Because I think that most of the people in the church who do not have to use it or never use it, they don't appreciate why we want to spend money on it, why we want to upgrade it with fiber optics rather than the Cat 5s, whatever that the internet, the Cat 5. They don't appreciate it, but when you're on the other end, you really do. And I was hoping, I knew that Louise was at a stress level of she did the best she could to get ready, but not only do they come too early or too late, they don't tell the truth. When you talk to a dispatcher, they're telling a completely different story that isn't true. Does that happen, Louise?
Well, what happened on that day, what happened last Sunday was I wanted to be picked up to arrive at the church at 8:30 for the Bible study with Pastor Greaves. And they called me back and confirmed that I would be picked up at 6:30 a.m., which was an hour earlier than I needed, but I said, I'm going to be downstairs and available because I don't want to miss the pickup. So I went downstairs at 6:15 a.m. and I waited through 6:15, through 6:30, 6:45, and 7 a.m. And finally I called and said, where are you? And the person told me that the driver said he had come and I wasn't there. And that was not the truth. That was a lie. So I complained about that. And the following day on Monday, I filed a complaint with the agency about that.
Wow. Well, I know how frustrating that can be, but I'm glad you were still able to watch it and to be able to be that part of the service. What would we do if we didn't have a streaming service?
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention was that I called Sister Edna, and she was able to let people know that I was all right. I was just not able to get the transportation.
Right.
So
And that's the other thing, Larry, that if
Yeah.
one of our seniors do not attend the service on Sunday, it creates a concern for some of us, and we pick up the phone and we call them and ask, are you okay? How are you doing? So that our stress level will go down, because it's unusual not to come into the church and see Louise sitting in her seat in the front, the second seat to the front in the middle of the church. Sometimes she puts her feet up on the pews.
Yeah. Okay. So do you stream Sunday school?
Pardon me?
No, Pastor, do you stream the Sunday school?
Okay, so there are two adult classes. One is taught here at the studio, and so that's broadcasted and streamed all over, so people can hear it in their automobiles coming to the church or watch it on the TV. On the Sunday school class that Louise goes to, taught by Pastor Greaves, what they do is that they Zoom it to the members that can't make it that Sunday. So it's not available on our webpage for everybody to watch and see. It's only for those people in the class.
Amen to that. Thank God for technology, huh?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. That's awesome.
Did both of you hear about the melee, the fight that took place in Montgomery, Alabama a couple days ago? It's the talk of the country.
I
What do you mean,
I did
a
hear,
physical fight?
I
A
did
physical
hear,
fight.
yeah,
You heard about it, Louise?
yes, I did.
Okay, so the senior heard about it, but Larry didn't hear about it.
No, I didn't.
The senior's caught up with the news, but Larry's not caught up. with it. Well, what happened is that there was a ferry in Alabama,
Oh, the riverboat fight.
the riverboat, yes.
Yes, I heard about that. I didn't see it. I heard about it.
Louise, did you see it or did you just hear about it?
I heard about it, and
Okay.
I saw a few pieces of it, but not the entire
Video.
message. Yeah.
Okay, well, I watched the entire video at least 7 times.
Mhm.
And what had happened is that a white family had pulled their boat into what we say the harbor, the place where the ferry was supposed to pull in.
Mhm.
So one of the people on the ferry who was assigned to do this got into a smaller boat, went to shore, and asked the family if they would move the boat because the ferry had to get in because there were hundreds of people waiting to get off of the ferry. And what happened then is that the people who were in the boat were white, the people on the ferry were predominantly black, and the white people that the gentleman was speaking to attacked, the 5 or 6 of them attacked this black man, and they were beating him senseless right on the port.
Mhm.
And so some other black people saw what was happening and they ran down, and it was a fight now between the black men and women and white men and women, and it went on for quite a while. I will say that I have never seen black people come together like that to take down somebody who was attacking them, because normally a lot of black folk won't attack white folk to defend themselves because of fear that when the police arrive, they're going to be the ones who are going to be arrested, and there's no way they can explain their way out. But that didn't happen this time. The white men who started the fight were arrested because most of the people on the ferry who had phones filmed it. There was enough evidence to show that this black man didn't start this fight. It was, so if you go to social media to look at it and to study it, what you're going to find is that there are videos now coming up that people have made over again. Right, they have made the videos over again, showing the blacks finally have stood their ground and made a decision, a decisive decision that they're not going to be bullied anymore. Larry, you saw it, or you heard about it. What were your thoughts about that?
I know it wasn't funny, but when I heard about it, the way that people were describing it, like brothers jumped in the water, like I'm gonna come and help you, bro.
Right.
They were swimming to this man, they helped him out, and then were victorious in defending him and coming to his aid. I heard there was a meme about somebody with a chair, took a chair, was hitting people. So they made a meme about that. It doesn't surprise me at all what goes on in society today. Some folks still think that they can do and say whatever they want to anybody.
Right.
Black, white, brown, purple, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's okay. But I guess they learned that it's not okay. You know.
Right. They learn real quickly that black folk have had enough, and that they are going to my thought is the coming of age of black people where they're not going to take it anymore. Because the other day I saw the movie Emmett Till, and I watched, how they brutalized that young man, and the house that he was in, he was taken out of a house of a family member. He was visiting a family in the South. He was taken out of the house by 2 white men who had guns. And when the child's mother came from Chicago to the South to find out what happened to her son, she noticed that in the house that he was taken out of, that there was a rifle, there was a gun, and she said to the owner of the house, "Why didn't you use your weapon to defend my son?" And the black man said, "Had I shot the white man, they would have burnt my house down and killed everybody in my family." That's one position. That's the way it used to be. When I saw that riverboat melee, that fight that took place, I said, Black people are at a whole different place in the country. And the things that they tolerated before and allowed to happen are not going to, they're not going to allow it to happen today. And I'm not condoning fighting and hitting people in the head with chairs. I am saying that it's time for Black folk to take a stand in this country and stop being brutalized and hung and beaten and get away with it. Louise, again, you didn't see the video, but you heard about what happened?
I did hear what happened, and I was obviously opposed to what the white people were doing, but I was then in favor. More recently, I was in favor of Black people supporting themselves because that's what they need to do. It's too bad that that comes up and people have to do something about it. But I think having a physical fight is better than bringing out guns and shooting people. I would not want to see any of my Black friends shot. Right.
And this is, when we think about Dr. King and the kneeling and praying and allowing yourself to be kicked and beat, that was for that particular era. Because I think what he was doing is showing America what hostile white people were willing to do.
Right.
Black folk had to take it in order for white America to see what they were doing.
And I went to the park to see that pastor at that time. And I was there with my two very young sons at the time. And it was a majority of Black people there. And nobody gave me a hard time because I was there in support of Martin Luther King. Nobody gave me a hard time for that. And I supported Martin Luther King when he was in the park and giving a speech, because I knew that he was going to college at the same college I was going to. And I thought he was a very important and special person. But the Black people never assaulted me when I was in their place. I thought that was interesting.
So Larry, what do you think about the changing of the mindset of Black America to say, we're not going to take this anymore? Is that what you're seeing in this melee?
Yes, but first I got to comment on what Sister Louise said. She was actually there. That to me, that's very impressive, Sister Louise. And that you took your sons with you to stand in agreement with what was going on with Black folk back then. Yeah, especially with Martin Luther King. That's not just talking about it, that's being about it, as we say. And you are truly about it. And I commend you for that, my sister. I really do. But to answer your question, Pastor, I see change. No, people can't just get away with it, whatever they want to say and do, just because somebody is not the same color as they are. I don't care if it white folk, Black folk feeling the same way about white folk just because they're white. There has to be a change overall. There has to, not just Black on white or white on Black. We have to change the mindset in society today, because let's be honest, our communities are being left alone
Mhm.
to uh, destroy themselves. For example, and I may get in trouble for saying this, but when I've taken the bus to work, this is like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. There are clubs still jamming 5, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they go until about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm looking at all these people. I'm a grown man, so I can take care of myself. But I look at all these people going to work. What happens when the kids go back to school? And I'm like, wow, eh, is this? And I'm not opposed to people having a good time. To do your thing, but what the effects it has on the community, the loud music and whatever else goes on, um, just looking at it and watching it, So yes, racism is still very much alive in this country, all over the world. Um, but what we can do better in our own community, right here, right here. How do we take care of each other? How do we step up and do better? But I do see the change. And if it's not just me, one day just saying good morning or saying hi or not getting an attitude with somebody, um, then so be it. Sometimes people come to me and say certain things like, "Oh, thank you for your services. Thank you very much." And it's unexpected,
Mhm.
but that little thing can make your day. It really can. So I see the changes, Pastor. I do. Do you?
Do I see the changes?
Yes.
I see the changes. For me, there is a changing perspective for the Black folk who are church oriented, and there's a changing perspective for people who are unchurched. They didn't support Dr. King or his movement of turning the other cheek or resisting aggressive people. I think the church is trying to feel their way back out into the community. I think the people who are in the community have had it up to here and are willing to do anything to defend their community. I think the church is trying to figure out how to do that because the church hasn't been in that posture for a long time now.
Mhm.
And what I saw in Alabama was Black folk coming to somebody's defense. I haven't seen that in a while. And I saw them say to white America, we're not going to take this any longer. Of course, it has political implications, and it has implications as to what is the retaliation going to be from white America in seeing Black folk standing up for themselves. That's another thing to have to navigate our way through. But I'm going to talk about it on our station so that I can I want to know the pulse beat of Black America to know where we're going in this fight for liberation and fight for freedom. Louise, just to let you know, we have 4 minutes left. Larry, every time I broadcast with Louise, she just talks and talks and talks. She takes all the time, and I don't really have an opportunity to say what I want to say. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to her to give some final summary thoughts because it's her broadcast. It's not yours. It's not mine. But Louise, why don't you take some more air out of this balloon?
Well, I just want to remind people, Pastor, that you are given an opportunity to speak on my broadcast, and you did today. That Larry is given an opportunity to speak on my broadcast as a guest, and he spoke. And I appreciate what both of you had to say because you are my brothers. We are Christian brothers and friends with each other, and there's no problem with that. So thank you for being with me on my broadcast today again. And I shall see you again next week, Pastor Bruce. And I'm not sure when I'll see Larry again, but thank you for being with us today, Larry. I do
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Louise, why don't we put Larry on the spot and find out when we're gonna see him again?
Oh, okay,
When we're
okay,
gonna see you again?
I will not be here next Wednesday.
Oh,
okay.
I already told Pastor that. That's why he's saying it now. No, I won't be here next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, Lord willing, I'll be right back here.
Okay, good. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
we have to, we have